Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Good to see people streaming in. Karibuni sana. Hope you had a good weekend and restful time. We're very glad that you could join us. So seeing lots of people here, also guys streaming in onto our social media platforms. Karibuni sana from wherever it is that you're joining us from. We really hope that you're well, but we're really glad that you could take the time to be here with us. Like I always say, I know you're busy people, but you do take the time to be here with us. You do give us a piece of your day each and every day, and we're much appreciated, appreciative about that. So for the sake of guys who are new here, John is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, like we always say, so it's not a one-man show. Last week we did have Mitch doing the sessions. This week I'm the one on the chopping block. So you will be seeing a lot of me this week. So John is my name. Mitch is in the back office. So feel free to interact with us. Of course, for the guys who are here joining us on Zoom, if you have any questions, feel free to send them in on the chat box or also on the Q&A section. We always do prefer that. At least we'll also be looking at those questions towards the tail end of this webinar. But as always, you don't really need to wait until the very end of the session. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does end up progressing on. So let's jump straight into it. And apologies for starting off a couple of minutes late. There were some fundamentals that were coming out for the euro. And so we did need to factor that in. So you can't see they were coming out at 9. So we did need to make a couple of alterations on our watch list and also on the currency pairs that we're going to be watching out for today. But at least you guys do always bear with us. You know, we always try and give you as much information or the correct information. And that's the reason why sometimes the sessions do end up starting off a bit late, but much appreciated that you guys do end up bearing with us. So we'll start off by looking at the currency pairs that we did have on Friday. There's only been one change. So of course the euro is the only one that's come into the buy side. So you can see that's the only change. So we'll end up looking at the euro pairs that we did have on Friday that unfortunately did not make it onto our watch list today. So the first one that we do have for review, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere within this region. In the morning, at a time like this on Friday, when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anything to tell us to look for the sells, but nonetheless, you can see that the market did push itself off this region to the downside, came down. This was during the London session. During the US session, you can see that the market did actually spike all the way till the top there. Could have been a bit hard to grab that, but that was during the non-farm payroll. And you can see that the market did come down. But ideally, even if you did actually wait for the sell somewhere within here, you can see that the market came down, tapped there, pulled back in within this region, came to the downside, then went up again before coming down. So you can see that there was some sort of a range that was happening within this region. Of course, the best area for you to look for your selling opportunities are at the top of the range, definitely making sure that you're managing to the downside. And you can see that today during the Asian session, the market has pushed to the downside of this area. But unfortunately, it's not really something that we'll be watching out for today. Bit of a choppy mess, of course, definitely something to do with the non-farm payroll. Sometimes it can be tricky to trade during such market conditions. That's the reason why sometimes, and most of the time, we do recommend that, you know, in case you don't really want to jump into a mess, you can definitely end up staying back. You know, you can actually end up saving some money by just, you know, sitting back and sitting on your hands and actually not jumping in to actually try and get in on some trades. When the market does end up settling down, you know, after the news events are over, then ideally you can look for opportunities after that. So we also did have the euro against the Japanese yen. Now for this one last week, on Friday rather, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative, somewhere within here. And you can see in the morning when we're looking at the charts, the market was somewhere within this region right here. It wasn't a really good area or a good time to look for the sells because we did need to see the sellers come in as much as the area was good. But you can see that the market broke to the upside and actually held above it. We did need to see the market push to the downside of this area and a strong push to the downside and a hold. Then maybe after that, we'd have looked for selling opportunities. But you can see that the market held, even probed within there, went to the upside. Seems like this price wasn't good enough And you can see that those sellers right there, those are the ones who did actually push the market to the downside. But also this one, not really the clearest of opportunities, also a bit of a choppy mess going on there. But you can see that today the market has pushed to the downside, including some gap within there. And this is also part of the reason why we always do recommend to guys that it's also not always the best of ideas to actually end up leaving your trades over the weekends, because you can't quite tell which way the gaps might happen. Sometimes they can work in your favor, but also other times you can actually end up possibly getting into a bigger loss because the market goes the other way, possibly skips your stop loss, and you'll end up incurring a much bigger loss. So that's pretty much it in terms of the review pairs. Of course, being a Monday, we don't really end up looking at the screenshots, but much appreciated of all the guys who did actually end up sending in a screenshot or two. We're really happy. So feel free to send in your screenshots. Of course, we will be looking at them tomorrow. You can send them in to us via WhatsApp. Our contact details should be there on the chat box. So let's get this week on the road. So we'll look at today's watch list, and you can see it there. Feel free to take a screenshot of that. So it's more or less the same things, only one change, which is the euro. So we'll start off by mixing and matching up the Australian dollar pairs with everything on the sell side. Move on to the yen pairs and finish off with the euro pairs. And of course, the last things being the indices and the commodities. So the first one, the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts on Friday, price was somewhere within this region right here. And of course, definitely wanted to see whether we could have gotten some buys within this region right here. And you can see that at around 10, which was during the London market open, price was back in within a buyer's region. And off this region, it did push itself to the upside. You can see that the market did start off quite slow, pushing itself up, but eventually, you know, the market did actually end up getting back in within this region. And unfortunately, you can't see that when 4:30 came around the corner, price was actually high up within some sort of a seller's region. So remember, we always point out, watch out for the times that we do keep on mentioning, 10, 3, and 4:30. And it's also important to look out for where the market is at those times, because ideally, even if your timing rather is not really that good, you could potentially end up getting a really good trading opportunity, you know, just by looking at where the market is within those times. So you can see that at around 10, price was within a buyer's region. At around 3, price was high up within a seller's region. Not really a good time for you to look for your buying opportunities. And remember, the main principle that we always talk about and we keep on repeating is buy with buyers. Make sure that you're also selling with sellers. If you do that, you're increasing the probability of your trades working out. Remember that there's nothing that's guaranteed when it comes to trading, and that's the reason why we always point out that you need to always trade with a stop loss. Because remember, in as much as even if you're going to be doing that, sometimes you can't get stopped out. But remember that trading is a game of probabilities. You want to increase the probability of your trades working out. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So you can see the three areas that we're watching out for, more or less the same. The market hasn't moved far and beyond the areas that we had pointed out on Friday. So we'll wait and see. We could potentially end up getting the market coming to the upside of this region. Then we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. Hopefully, if these buyers who push the market up of this region during the Asian session, if they can push the market back to the upside of this region, maybe even if we get a hold to the upside, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get buying opportunity at that point in time. But also wait and see what happens. Right now, don't just hit buys because we're back within this buyer's region right here. You could find that the fact that price has come back in within this region, there's a possibility that the market needs a better price than this. So you could hit a buy here only to actually end up getting stopped out, because the market could tap within here before moving to the upside. So just make sure that you're patient, wait and see what happens. Hopefully these sellers who are coming down need a much better price and the market comes back in within here. Then you could try and see whether you could get maybe something similar to this, where the market breaks to the downside, comes back in, and hopefully, if it does hold above this region, you could even take a buy and target all the way high up within here. But just making sure that you do manage your trade within this region. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. Remember the red SNR, in case the market breaks that region to the downside, then unfortunately, there will be no trade for us. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities on Friday. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region, but there was also this minus SNR where he had pointed out that you could potentially find the market pushing itself off this region to the upside. And you can see that the market just came back in within here. They're at around 910 during the Frankfurt London market open. Price was within this region, attempted to go to the upside, but you can see that the buyers were really pushing up really slow. It was only when the non-farm payroll did actually come in, and you can see that the market literally tapped in within this region. And this is something similar to what I pointed out on the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc, where you find that if the market comes back in within a region, most of the time it might need a better price. So you can imagine guys who are just looking for buys here with their stops here. Unfortunately, this spike right here, that definitely took them out. So you can see that the market tapped in within here quite fast. After that, the market went to the upside. Could have been a bit tricky in terms of grabbing that buying opportunity, because you can see that the market just tapped there so quick. But like we always mentioned, not all trades, are possible to get. Some you actually wait for them, but unfortunately, they actually do end up running away. You knew the market was going to come back in within a certain region. But the fact that it came in too fast or too quick, you couldn't actually end up jumping in on it. And you just actually end up letting it slide. But you can see that once the market broke this region to the upside, there was some sort of a slight pullback coming in. Unfortunately, just not all the way exactly till within this region. But you can see that it broke to the upside, came back in, possibly something that needed to be read on a smaller time frame. But anyway, today we're back at it again. So even if you didn't grab anything on Friday, let's see if today we can be lucky. So we will be watching out for these three regions right here. So right now, don't look for the buying opportunities unless the market breaks above this region to the upside and we get a pullback, maybe something almost similar to this, but just give the sellers the benefit of doubt. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region here. But remember that there's no price that's ever too far for the Forex market. I mean, during the London market open, price could be here and you could find it down here, maybe during the US session open, and you could find a good buy taking off from within here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market breaks that region to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. For this one, we're trying to see whether we could get buys as well. Can't see the three regions that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. And you can see this one as well. Similar situation during the non-farm payroll, something similar to the Australian dollar against the Canadian dollar. That's when the market pulled back in within here. Also, you can see that that move was pretty quick. And after that, you can see that the market went to the upside. The sellers were still pushing, but after that, it did hold to the upside. Possibly looking for safer buys could have been somewhere within this region here, but you also needed to read that on a smaller time frame. But you can see that the market tapped that area quite fast. Could have been also quite hard to end up grabbing that trading opportunity right there. But at least in terms of the idea, we did have an idea that price was possibly going to come back in within that region. So for this one for today, watch out for those three areas there. So you can see that the market is just being pushed back to the downside by the sellers. Let's see how far they can go. So let's keep our fingers crossed that the market comes back in somewhere as close as possible within this area here. And hopefully we do get the market slowing down in terms of the sellers, coming down within this region, and we see signs of the aggressive buyers coming in. We could attempt to get some buying opportunities within here, definitely targeting somewhere within there. But also watch out for the region below. Definitely, in case the prices within here are not good enough, you could find the sellers attempting to go a bit much more lower to try and see whether they can end up getting, the buyers trying to get a much better discount for their buying opportunities. So watch out for that. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we did have on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Unfortunately, the buys on Friday were not really coming through, and you can see that at around this time on Friday, price was somewhere within here. Wasn't a really good time for people to look for buying opportunities unless the market broke above this region to the upside. And you can see that the market pulled back in. Unfortunately, there was nothing within there to tell us to look for the buying opportunities, and definitely nothing at the bottom right here as well. So you can see that the market was on the pullback more or less the whole of Friday. So today, let's see if we can possibly end up getting some buying opportunities within here. You can see that the sellers are slowing down. And remember, like we always point out, trading should be visual. Or rather, when you're at least doing price action trading, it should be visual. You can see that the sellers are coming in. they're starting to slow down. And you can see that the buyers have actually started to show some signs of aggression. You can see that the green candles are starting to become bigger than the red candles. So you can see that the market went to the downside, broke above it, and after that, the market is actually maintaining, within this region right here. So for this one, the levels are the same. So in as much as the market did actually end up moving a lot, it's not really moved far and beyond the regions that we had pointed out on Friday. And hopefully we will be getting the market lifting itself off this region here. So you could find that maybe at around 10 during the London market open, you could potentially find some good buying opportunities within here. You could keep your stops somewhere within this region right here. So let's even just try and see whether we can end up putting some sort of a virtual trade. So let's say if you keep your stop somewhere within there, you can see it's only just about 9 pips or so. Of course, targeting somewhere within that region right there. And just making sure that you're really watching out for what happens within here. Because if, let's say, the market breaks to the downside of this region and starts to hold below here, well, you still could end up maintaining this trade. Sometimes the market does end up doing that, where it just ends up fooling around. You could easily end up scratching your trade only to find out that the market will actually end up going to the upside. So you just need to be maybe a bit patient. But of course, there's no point having your stops too far further than this, because in case you end up doing that, then that means that when the market breaks that region to the downside, you're actually just going to be holding on to an unnecessary loss, which will not really end up being that necessary. So of course, you could end up being a bit of a cowboy. I know that some of you are definitely cowboys. And if you want to be a cowboy, you could have your stops anywhere within this region. But remember that you also run the risk, of just being caught out before the market actually moves in your favor. But the good thing about it is definitely your risk to reward does end up becoming better. So you can see that just by reducing the stop loss, the risk to reward becomes a 1:3.5 from something that's possibly a 1:2.5, which is still not too bad. Remember that for as long as you're getting anything above 1:2, you definitely should be, good to go. So do watch out for that. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, if the market lifts during the London session, well and good. If it doesn't, then I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens maybe during the US session. You could find that maybe the US big boys might be the ones who might literally get the job done. So do watch out for that. Also remember, no matter what you do trade with a stop loss. And remember to watch out for the red SNR. In case the market breaks beneath that region and holds to the downside, don't really attempt any more buying opportunities after that, because in as much as you're going to be having and trading with a stop loss, for as long as the big boys have decided that they're not going to be pushing the market up, you're still going to incur losses. And that's the reason why we always point out the red SNR, so that at least you know how much is enough, so that you don't actually keep on fighting with the markets when the markets are continually moving against you. So moving on into the last AUD pair. So this is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can see the 3 regions right there that Mitch had pointed out, which are more or less the same areas that we're going to be watching out for today. So on Friday, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. Wanted to see the market come back into the downside and hold. Unfortunately, we didn't get that, and you can see that the market continued to push itself to the upside. At around 3, price start there, came down pretty fast, bounced off this region to the upside, broke to the upside before coming back in. So a lot of a choppy mess, was going on within this region right here. And you can see that we're more or less holding, between those 2 levels right there. So let's see what happens today. So the plan is still more or less the same. Right now, the market is coming back in within this region right here. There's already been 2 massive probes within this region. So ideally, that already tells us that there are definitely a bunch of sellers, who are sitting somewhere within this region right here. So what we'll be waiting for is definitely to see what happens. Could possibly find that the market could attempt to break to the upside again. If it does end up breaking to the upside, but still ends up coming back in, then ideally we could look for selling opportunities, and we could potentially look for something like that. This is good because if this happens, then ideally it will give us a good area in terms of where to put our stops. Because if you do jump in on the sells now, let's say you jump in on a blind sell, just because we are within some sort of a seller's region. So let's say somewhere within this region right here, then the safest area visually where you should be looking to have your stop loss is all the way high up within this area right here. And you can see that if you end up doing that, in as much as it's still a trade, in terms of risk to reward, this is not very good. So you want to make sure that you're putting your stop losses at least somewhere within that region. And that's the reason why waiting for something like this might definitely be something that you definitely want to wait for. So sometimes getting the best trades calls for you to actually be very, very patient. Of course, remember the best trades mean that you have the best risk to reward, and where you're going to be putting your stops is also within a safe area where you don't really run the risk of actually getting stopped out. So let's wait and see what happens. Remember, if the market breaks above this region to the upside and we can't get this and the market holds to the upside, then we'll have to be patient. But the good thing about it is what we know so far, based on what we can see, you can see that the market has broke within there twice. So that means that there are a bunch of sellers who are definitely sitting somewhere within this region right here. So do watch out for that. Let's see what happens. And that's pretty much it for the AUD pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the yen currency pairs, and we're going to be mixing and matching up the yen with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, at around 9:10, price was somewhere within here. You can see that the market went to the upside, came back in, held within here. If you attempted sells here, with stops here, you can see that the market just tapped in within that region quite fast. Then at 3, price was back in within some sort of a buyer's region, and off this area right here, you can see that the market pushed itself off to the upside quite aggressively, broke this region and also this region to the upside. So unfortunately, once that happened, definitely there were no selling opportunities at that point in time. So for this one for today, we've adjusted the levels. So you can see that there was this area, or there's this area right here where the market broke to the upside, came back in. Definitely you can see that there are sellers who pushed the market to the downside quite aggressively on Thursday. So we'll be waiting to see whether they can get the job done once again. That's if the market is pushed back into the downside of this region right here. So you can see that during the Asian session, price came down. The sellers pushed the market to the downside, bounced off this region to the upside. The pullback coming in is not really the best. It's not really what we want to see. So we'll be waiting to see if we can get a slowdown of these sellers. Hopefully these sellers can push the market to the downside of this region once again. If that happens and we get the market holding there, then you could attempt sells, at that point in time. Make sure that you watch out for this area before. You can see that the buyers have pushed off this area twice. So you can't assume that region right there. If you do, then there's a possibility you could be taken all the way back to square one. So make sure that you're always trading what you can see. You can visually see there's an SNR here. So you can't just assume that the market will just come, breaking through that region to the downside. Of course, that would be the best thing. And sometimes the market does end up doing that. But ideally, in terms of your money management, you need to be ready for that region. If you're not, then it means that you're living in utopia. You're not being realistic about what you're seeing on the charts. So watch out for that. But right now, what you can do, like for this one, there's no point really keeping your eyes out on this one so much. What you can do is you can set an alert somewhere within here. If the market comes back in, then you'll be alerted. Well and good. If it doesn't come back in within that region, then really, even if you just keep looking at it, you're really wasting your time. So make sure that you do end up possibly waiting, have an alert there. Let's see what happens. So the next one is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, trying to see whether we could get sells. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So at around 9:10, price came back in within there. You can see that the London big boys were not really doing anything much. Price was just hovering around here. But during the US session, you can see how choppy the market became within here. But generally, you can see that the sellers were holding at the top. Definitely the best area to look for your sells, as close as possible within here. You can see that the market pushed itself to the downside of that area a number of times, but you also did need to manage your trade somewhere within this region. But you can see that the market broke to the downside, came back in, held within here. Of course, we're coming towards the end of the week. In terms of looking for selling opportunities at that point in time, it could have been a bit tricky, but you can see that nonetheless, price pushed itself off that region to the downside, and during the Asian session, price has continued to come down. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So we'll be watching out for these three regions right here. So we have adjusted them. So make sure that you do take note of these three areas. In terms of the sells, right now the market is coming back in within a good area, which is good. So we'll be just trying to see whether we can get a slowdown of these buyers. And of course, if we do see the sellers coming in, then we'll definitely try and see whether we could grab some sells. Watch out for this region at the bottom. But also remember that there's a possibility price could come back in within this region right here. So in case the market comes back in within here, our last ditch selling opportunities will be happening somewhere within here. But also remember, just like we've seen on the Swiss franc against the Japanese yen, if the market breaks above that region to the upside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one, the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also trying to see whether we could get sales today. And also on Friday, you can clearly see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. So more or less in the middle of nowhere. And you can see that the market was possibly giving some sort of whipsaws within this region, came to the upside somewhere within there. So it's just before the US session opened. You can see the market tapped back in within there, and off that area, you can see that the bars pushed the market quite aggressively to the upside. Market tapped in all the way till that region at the top right there. And this one also goes to show you, what we always talk about in terms of, price could be somewhere within a particular level, and it seems like the other levels are quite far. But there are no levels that are too far, when it comes to trading, especially when you have news events like the non-farm payroll. So you can see that the market tapped in within here. There are definitely some guys and some cowboys on the charts who are hitting sales, especially when the market was down within this region right here. And they thought that the market had broken this region to the downside. And you can imagine what happened to those guys. I'm sure they didn't have a very good weekend. So just make sure that you're always patient. Also, in terms of the breakout trades, don't really take them. Make sure that you're always waiting for that confirmation, that the market has actually broken a region to the downside. So you can see that even just looking at this region right here, and even if I were to highlight this whole region, you can see that we're more or less in some sort of a range. This is a probe to the upside. The market went up, came back in. But if you didn't grab the sales there, look at what happened when the market pulled back in within this region. If you did attempt sales within that area, this would have been much, much better sales than someone who hit a sell down within this region, because you can see the confirmation of the price holding, within that area right there. So for this one, of course, due to the fact that we're in some sort of a range, the best thing to do would be to actually wait and see if we can get the market coming back in within here. Don't hit sales within here, because you're more or less in the middle of a range. That's not really the best way to go about it in terms of risk to reward and also in terms of trading. The sellers are definitely somewhere high up within this area. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within there. To get the sales there, then you could target the bottom of the range, somewhere within this region right here. Of course, if the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and you wait for the pullback, if you do get a hold within here, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get some selling opportunities, because you could also find that the market could turn around within this region. There are also some minor sellers within here. You see these sellers who push the market to the downside during the Asian session. If they do push the market to the downside quite aggressively, and we get the market coming back in within here and really struggles, to really break to the upside, then at that point in time, you could look for selling opportunities within this region right here. So just make sure that you're a bit patient, possibly waiting for something like this before you do actually end up getting the sales after you get the breach of structure. So I hope that that is clear for guys and what the plan is. So let's move on to the next one, which is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities as well. Unfortunately, the sales were not really coming through. There was also something up with the New Zealand dollar pairs on Friday. Just looking at quite a number of them, and you can see that also this one, the sales didn't really come through like we wanted. And you can see that in the morning, price was somewhere within here, definitely within a buyer's region, not a good time to look for your sales. You can see that the market came back in within here, there was nothing. Although you can see that the market tapped back in within this region quite fast, but more or less maybe some sort of a stop out. Maybe for guys who are hitting buys, within these regions right here. And you can see that the market broke this region to the upside. And unfortunately, when that happened, this one did definitely fall off our watch list on Friday. So for today, we'll be trying to see whether we will be lucky in terms of possibly getting some sales. So do watch out for these three areas right here. So we do have the conservative at the bottom, aggressive right here. Price is coming back in within this region. So let's see what happens. Keep your eyes locked on this region right here. But also in terms of how the buyers are coming in, this is not really that good for us in terms of looking for the sell. So we'll definitely need to see a slowdown, of the buyers coming in. You can see that the first time they came up quite aggressively. In fact, did some sort of a U-turn within this region to the upside, but it's also understandable because there's some sort of an SNR within this area right here. And you can see that the retaliation of the sellers coming down because the market did tap in within a region where we do have sellers. Visually, if you end up looking at what's happening, buyers have come up. You can definitely see between the buyer and the sellers are still not really quite there, and right now the buyers are attempting to push up. We definitely need to see the aggression of the sellers. Remember that you always want to sell with strong sellers. You always want to buy with strong buyers. So if you're seeing that the party that you want to join is actually showing weakness, then you're actually better off not taking that trade, because you could find that the market could break this region to the upside. So let's wait and see what happens. But the good thing about it is you can see that the market did probe within here. And remember, like I always talk about probes being a clue that they are, the opposite party is sitting there. The fact that the market went to the upside and came back in, and the market is holding still within this region, then it tells us that there are definitely some sellers who are sitting within this area. So at least that should give you some hope. Not some hope to jump in on the trade now. Remember, you still need to wait and see whether the buyers are going to slow down, because if they don't, even if it shows that there are sellers who are sitting within here, they could easily end up getting taken out. And if you end up including yourself in that, then you're also going to end up incurring a loss. So watch out for that. Of course, if you get sales there, you could manage down here, but also watch out for the mid area right there. Definitely a region where you should be looking to manage your trade. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sales. You can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. And in the morning, when you're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. So unfortunately, you can see that there was nothing to tell us to look for sales there. Price came back in all the way till within this region. Definitely a region with sellers. You can see that they retaliated quite fast. The market tapped in within this region. Maybe unless you are looking or possibly ended up getting, some quick in and out type of trade in terms of the sales. But you can see that after that, the market really took off to the upside quite aggressively, even took out these sellers. So for this one for today, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. So make sure that you do take note of them. So the aggressive right there, semi-aggressive conservative somewhere within this region right here, and we do have the conservative somewhere within that area right there. So do watch out for those three areas right there. Right now we're back in more or less within some sort of a seller's region, or also some sort of a buyer's region, because you can see that the market has pushed itself to the upside of this area, but also pushed itself to the downside still of this area. So for this one, the best game plan would be, let's see if we can get the market coming back in aggressively to the downside. If we do get the market holding within here, then ideally you could attempt, your selling opportunities, maybe to come down within here. Definitely do some money management there, but you could find that the market could come down all the way to within this region right here. So make sure that you watch out for that. Remember that if the sellers don't show up aggressively within this region here, if you do jump in on that sell, in as much as it's within a seller's region, you run the risk of actually getting stopped out, So make sure that you also do have that at the back of your mind. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the euro pairs. So for these ones, more or less new currency pairs. So we'll move through them pretty fast. So the euro against the Swiss franc. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Right now, the market is within the aggressive area. So we just need to see the aggressive buyers showing up within that region there. And if we do get that, then potentially we could try and see whether we could get the market coming back, maybe even all the way till there, but just make sure that you watch out for this region right here. Also a minor SNR, somewhere within this region right here, because you can see that the sellers have turned the market within this region. So you could find that the market could be coming up and the buyers within here could, the sellers within here could easily end up stopping the buyers. So also have that at the back of your mind. But ideally, let's try and see, or let's wait and see. Right now we're approaching the London market open at 10. So you could find that the London big boys could easily push the market to the upside of this area to the upside. You could find that the market could come in within here, maybe even break to the upside of this area right here. If it does, maybe during the London or the US market open, rather at around 3 prices somewhere within here, you could find another buying opportunity. So in mind, this is what we have, but ideally, remember the Forex market has a mind of its own. Remember the red SNR at the bottom. In case the market breaks that to the downside, then unfortunately, we'll have to be on standby on that currency pair. So the next one is the euro against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. The euro against the Swiss franc looks much better, considering the fact that there's a pullback that's coming and it's within some sort of a buyer's region. This one, yeah, we're looking for buying opportunities, but the market is within some sort of a seller's region. Of course, if the market were to come back in somewhere as close as possible within here, then ideally, I want to get some really good buying opportunities within this area right here, or maybe somewhere within this region here. But for this one, we still can't get the buys, but there's caution. We'd have to make sure that the market breaks above this region to the upside and we get a nice hold to the upside of this area before we look for buying opportunities. Considering the fact that the market had broken above here and came back in, there's a possibility there's some sellers who are sitting within this region. So a bit of caution is advised on this one, but it doesn't mean that the market can't pull back in. You could find that maybe during the London market open, price could come back in within here. And maybe during the US session open, that's when you could find, a good buying opportunity because the market will be back here at around 3. So for this one, just make sure that you're a bit cautious in terms of your approach. Also remember the red SNR at the bottom, price can also come back in all the way to within that region. So the next one is the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, similar situation with the euro against the Canadian dollar to some extent. You can see that also this one, the market is high up within some sort of a seller's region. So also this one, a bit of caution is advised, but it doesn't mean that the market can't end up, playing out the way Earth guys want it. So let's wait and see what happens, but you also can't see sellers are within here. Let's wait and see if we can get maybe the sellers pushing the market back in. If we can get the market coming back in somewhere within here, I think the best buy would be here. Although you can't see that the market is getting into some sort of a range. So the highs are somewhere here, the lows are somewhere here. Don't look for the buys here. The only way you'd look for the buy here is if the market breaks above here. You can see that the buyers are coming up quite aggressively. With this last candle coming in, if they can sustain that momentum and get the market breaking above there, then you could potentially look for your buying opportunities at that point in time. Once we get a breach of structure. Before we get a breach of structure, remember, it's always better to look for your buying opportunities at the bottom of the range where the buyers are. Because if you hit the buys here, assuming that the market is going to be going to the upside, then it means that you're taking the role of the big boy. And I don't really think you have that much money. So you're better off just waiting. So also watch out for the region at the bottom right here. In case the market comes back in within this region right here, then in case the prices within here are not good enough, then you could potentially find that some good buying opportunities could be happening off there. So moving on into the second last currency pair, this is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. You can see that this one has been pulling back, which is good. So on Friday, definitely lots of people definitely chasing the selling opportunities, but of course, based on the last news events that have come out for the euro. And I think that's a reason why you're starting to see this strength, coming in on the euros. Let's wait and see if we can possibly get the market breaking above here. Don't look for the sells, for the buying opportunities now, because you never know what reaction these sellers could end up bringing in. You could easily find that the buyers are coming up aggressively within there, but the sellers might also push the market down quite aggressively, and you could easily end up getting stopped out. And the market could tap here, and after that, lift to the upside, and you'll be left there wondering, why couldn't I just have waited? So just make sure that you're just patient to see what happens on this one. But ideally, the best thing to do is wait and see if the buyers can sustain the momentum and break to the upside. If the market breaks above this region to the upside, maybe even attempts to come to the downside and still holds above there, then at that point in time, if you take that buying opportunity, it's much safer. And also in terms of risk to reward, it will definitely make a lot more sense. So make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember, things can always turn around. In case the sellers do push the market down to the downside and break this region to the downside, the red SNR, and we can't get the market holding to the upside of that area, then at that point in time, that means that that currency pair will be falling off our watch list. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we have the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So you can see also this one, the market has pulled back, which is good. Definitely lots of sellers in the market, as opposed to the euro against the Canadian dollar, and I think the euro against the US dollar, which already going up So these ones are much better because ideally it's not like we're chasing the buys. You know, when the market is going up on the others, to some extent it feels like we're chasing the market as it's going up. But for this one, because you can see that the opposite party has come in, and remember that's the party that you need to do business with. So these ones might actually give better opportunities. But let's see what happens. Also, don't end up chasing just because you're seeing some green bars on your charts and you think that it might be a good idea for you to hit the buying opportunity. Remember that also within this area, there's some sort of an SNR within here. And even if you hit the buy here, the best area for you to have your stop loss is all the way down here. And already a problem area is here. So that means that the risk to reward is off. You're getting the short end of the stick. So don't sign up for that. Make sure that you do actually wait for the market to either come back in within here, because it can. I'm sure that most of you, just from your trading experience, you've realized times when you've actually thought the market is not going to come back in within a particular region and you took a trade and you're left there wondering why you took the trade, or it would have even been much better off if you are not even in front of your charts because you took a very bad trade. So make sure that you're patient. And as much as the market looks like it's moving, don't chase. This is a region where we do have some sellers. You could find that the market could react off here. It's reacted off there before. You could find the market coming back in, maybe even somewhere as close as possible within here. To get a proper risk to reward on, if you're looking for trades within here, since the buyers are coming up, let's see if they can sustain that momentum. If they can break above this region to the upside and we get a hold above here, because we also need to clear this sellers region. Consider the market gap to the downside. So if you do hit the buys here, I think you'll possibly end up jumping into a trade where you get squeezed, within this region right here, because you could find that the market could range within here, and that can also end up being very frustrating. So don't do that. Make sure that you do wait. If the market breaks above, well and good. If it doesn't, wait for the pullback. And ideally, of course, even if things don't end up aligning on this one, there are definitely quite a number of currency pairs that we're looking out for. So that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched up the Australian dollar, the Japanese yen, and the euro against everything on the sell side. So right now we're going to move on to the commodities and the indices. So we'll start off with the NAS 100. And even as we jump into that, just a quick announcement. Remember, the AMP program for July is actually going to be starting on the 15th, which is next week on Monday. I think we only have one slot left. So if you want to jump in on that, make sure that you do sign up. I know that a lot of guys have signed up for the August class, which is good. Even that one is still open. So if you go to our page, Afriforex.com, if you go to the section where there are the courses, or even in the academy section, feel free to submit course just to put you on the waiting list. And of course, we'll definitely get in touch with you before the class ends up beginning, and we'll give you more details and stuff. Also, for the guys who signed up for the August class, keep on signing up. Then I think within the next week or so, we'll definitely also be opening up maybe the September one as well. So if you're still interested in joining the July class, there's one slot left. So if you want to join in, make sure that you do fill up the form, and we'll definitely get in touch with you. So let's move on to the NAS 100. So for this one, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So aggressive down within here. And of course, for as long as we're holding above there, then the bias was to look for buying opportunities. Conservative at the top, semi-aggressive, conservative within this region here. And you can see that the market broke to the down upside. This was during the London market open. Price came back in within there. You can see that the market really held within there, which was good. I mean, even if you did attempt buys within there, definitely see that those buys did actually end up paying off quite well. So moving into today, we're still going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. And you can see that seems that the market has tapped back in within this region for whatever reason. I don't know what this could be, but you can see that the market came to the downside. Then after that came back in within there. Seems like some sort of market manipulation or something of the sort. But anyway, we'll figure it out and see what happens. But ideally, the plan is still to look for buying opportunities. Don't look for your buying opportunities right now If you do, then you could easily end up banging your head on this ceiling right here, which is not really what you want to do. Wait and see if you could get the market breaking above here to the upside. If we do get that, maybe a repeat, what happened on Friday, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get some buying opportunities there. But also wait and see if you could get the market coming back in within there. And also these buyers, you can see that on Friday, during the non-farm payroll, price took off from within this region to the upside aggressively. So you could find that lots of people are also looking for buying opportunities, and a lot of people need to get stopped out. And maybe that's the reason why you can't see that the market has done this sort of thing within here. I haven't really looked at the MT5 to see if we have that. But ideally, some things like this normally do end up happening to stop people out. So make sure that you watch out. You could still find the market coming back in within here. And also considering the fact that this move was quite aggressive to the upside, to go up a higher time frame, it's definitely something that's also visible there. So you could find that the market could come back in, even somewhere as close as possible within this area. You can't see that it came back in almost as close as possible within there. But the fact that it hasn't tapped that region, there's a possibility it still might end up coming back in within there. So caution is advised on this one. The good thing about it is that the market has been moving up for a significant amount of time, which is good. So we generally know the flow of the market is to the upside. But in terms of looking for your buys, knowing the direction is one thing, getting the timing right is another. And I know that's where most people actually end up failing. And it's actually very painful because you knew the market was going to go to the upside. You hit the buy, you are stopped out, and the market went up. So the bus left without you. You knew it was going to go, but it left without you because your timing was off. So just make sure that you're really trying to work out and figure out your timing. But the good thing about it is every morning when we come for the daily analysis, we give you the direction and also areas, potential areas where you should potentially be looking for your trades. But try and see if you can perfect your timing in terms of, yes, the market has come back within a certain region. Can I read the story right? To make sure that I'm taking the trade at the exact moment that I should be taking the trade. And of course, if you're really struggling with that, then that's the reason why we are here. And we do have our courses and our academy, the Afriforex Academy. You can sign up and you can come have a sit down with us and we can definitely work out on those issues. So moving on into the Dow Jones. So for this one on Friday, we're definitely trying to also see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within this region here. Price came down, tapped within this area right here. You can't see two probes that happened within there, a bit of a choppy mess that was going on. And you can see that after that, the market pushed itself to the upside. If you look at what's happening right now, remember, like I always point out, it's very visual. You can see that the market has come back in within here. The last time when the sellers, or rather the last time when the market was back within here, you can see how aggressive the sellers were pushing the market to the downside quite aggressively. If you look at their reaction this time coming down and what's happening right now, you can visually see that the sellers are actually, they've really slowed down. They're not really there. But that doesn't mean that you should just automatically be hitting the buys, because remember that even if the sellers slow down, but the buyers don't show up, then it means that you could easily end up getting stuck within this region, which is also not what you want to do. So you can see that the market is in some sort of a range, and you can see that this level right here that Mitch had also pointed out, more or less like true SNR, as we would call it, is somewhere within here. We're at the bottom of a range, which is good. Of course, buys within this region, definitely not a bad idea. So there's a possibility price could be coming back in. It could tap somewhere within this region here. Could have your stops somewhere within this area right here. And let's see if we can get the market lifting to the upside. So proper buys could possibly happen somewhere within there. Could have your stops, maybe somewhere within this region right here. And of course, targeting the top of the range. We can still see that you'll get a nice 1:2.34, which is not too bad. Of course, depending on how good you are in terms of your trading, you could definitely have your stop losses tighter. But remember that you also run the risk of just being stopped out, before the market moves. But of course, with experience, and depending on how much experience you have on the charts, then you definitely could end up doing that. So watch out for that. In case the market doesn't lift off here, watch out for the region at the bottom. Definitely a region in the last area where we'll be trying to see whether we can get our buying opportunities. So the second last thing that we're going to be looking at, as always, is silver. Now, for silver, on Friday, the bus was to look for buying opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that Mitch had pointed out. So in the morning, price was somewhere within here, and you can see how dead the market was during the London market open. Price was just holding within there. Then, of course, depending on guys who are looking at smaller time frames, maybe the breakout traders, and the market seemed like it was taking off this area and they hit the buys there, then this was definitely a treat for them and they all ended up in the gutter. So you can see that the market came back in within this region, tapped this area quite fast. But remember, like I pointed out, some of these trades are actually quite hard to get because the market just tapped in within here, unless you had a pending with your stop loss maybe somewhere lower within these regions right here, but you also run the risk of maybe just being stopped out. And you can see that off that area, the market went to the upside quite aggressively. Could have been very hard to end up grabbing that trade, but you can see that the market broke to the upside, maybe reading this region on a smaller time frame. After the market came back in on the 15, it's not very clear, but maybe on the 3-minute time frame and maybe on the 1-minute time frame, trying to attempt whether you could get some buying opportunities here to move to the upside. So for this one today, let's see if we'll get something much more clearer within these three regions right here. So we're also trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on this one. So do watch out for those three areas right there. Right now, the market has come back in within a buyer's region, which is good. And that's fantastic. But remember, like I always point out, the buyers need to also be there if you're going to be hitting buys. You can't see that the market pushed itself off this region to the upside. This was on Friday. Right now, the market has come back in within this region. If you look at the relativity, remember, I always point out, it's always a matter of what's one party doing versus the other. If you end up looking at how the buyers pushed off this area to the upside and how the sellers have come down, you can definitely see that there's a struggle. I mean, the buyers going up, look at how smooth this move was to the upside. Coming down, the sellers retaliating, just coming back into within this region. You can see that this is a very choppy mess, coming down, but it is good because remember, when it comes to the pullbacks, if the sellers were to push back aggressively back within this region, then we definitely have a problem on our hands. So what we want to see is we want to see the buyers within this region push this market back to the upside. If the market taps back in within this region, maybe it has, you can see that a week somewhere within there, some sort of a pin buy, and I'm sure that all you guys can see that. Let's see if the market can actually push to the upside. This is already a good sign, the fact that there's a pin bar there. If the market can push to the upside and these sellers within here can even show more weakness, then the better for us in terms of looking for the buys within there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. That could happen maybe during the US session, but also keep an eye out, for the London session in case that happens. Well and good, but there's a high probability and a possibility that the indices and generally the commodities and the indices normally tend to move a lot during the US because remember they're all pegged on the USD. So in case things don't move during the London session, just keep an eye out for what happens during the US session. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, the bar is to look for buys. And you can see the three areas right there that Mitch had pointed out, more or less a similar situation with what happened on silver. So you can see when this one, the market spiked to the downside quite aggressively. Once again, you can imagine guys who are hitting buys within here and the market looked like it was holding to the upside. Some weak buyers coming in, sellers definitely stopped out by that. When the market came down here, I can guarantee you millions of traders across the world were definitely looking for sells. And there are very many people who hit sells when the market was down here. So definitely ended up being a double loss. You hit the buy, you get stopped out, you chase the sell, then you're completely finished. So make sure that you're not chasing, and the reason why we keep on pointing this out is, over and above showing you guys the setups and sharing our analysis, we're also here to mentor and also give guys advice on the charts. And we always try to keep it as realistic as possible. So of course, if you've not experienced the things that I'm talking about on the charts, it's just a matter of time. If you're new to trading, utakaribishwa tu kwa soko. It's going to happen. But ideally, most of the things will definitely make sense as we continue moving along. So watch out for these three areas right here. The buyers is to look for buying opportunities. We're within some sort of a buyer's region, which is good. Something almost similar to silver. There's some good correlation happening, amongst the two of them. Let's wait and see what happens within here. The sellers are coming in. They're starting to show a bit of aggression coming back in within here. But the good thing about it is these are some sort of a buyer's region. So let's see if the buyers can retaliate within this region and hopefully push the market to the upside. If that happens, watch out for that region at the top right there. Of course, definitely some minor SNRs within these regions where you could also watch out in terms of managing your trades. But ideally, hopefully, if the buyers do come in aggressive, we should be coming back within that. But also remember, in case this price is not good enough and the sellers keep, piling pressure on the buyers within this area, then you could find the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. So do watch out for that. Remember for the indices and also for the commodities. So generally the last four that we've looked at, for as long as they're holding above the red SNR, we should be looking for buys. If they do end up breaking to the downside of the red SNRs, and not the first candle that breaks and immediately start looking for those selling opportunities, you need that confirmation that the market has actually broken and held below to the downside for you to actually end up looking for those selling opportunities. So do watch out for that. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything, the currency pairs. There you have it. For the guys who came in late, definitely feel free to have a look at that. The good thing about it is nowadays we don't really have a lot of repeat this and that because everything is online, also on our social media platforms. You can definitely watch and rewatch on YouTube. So I see Alan Rono, good to see you there, saying hi, John. Thanks a lot. We appreciate. Karibu sana, Alan. Always good to see you here. I see Peter Onyango. You're saying, morning team, when it comes to news announcement, what duration should one wait before looking into trading opportunities after the announcement of the news, of the certain news? Well, you could give it like maybe an hour, but it also depends on the impact of the news, but generally give it like an hour or so. Sometimes you will find news events that will happen and the market takes off and completely goes, in that direction and will never come back. And it's okay. Remember that not every trading opportunity that you see or every trading opportunity that you had envisioned is actually yours for the taking. There are some that you should actually just let go. You should just let them slide. But ideally, within an hour, especially for the high impact news events, after the dust has settled, then you normally find that the market will definitely end up establishing a direction. Because remember that there are some news events that happen and they are there just to shake things around. Where you find that, let's say, like, for example, the non-farm payroll has come out. The market starts to move in a particular direction. Everyone chases the market in that direction. But you find that after the news events are over, give or take like an hour, you find that the market resumes maybe the direction in which the market was taking. So it's always best to actually just give it an hour for the market, the dust to settle, and also for the market to establish itself within the direction that it wants to take. So that's what I would end up advising you. But thanks for that, Peter Onyango. And I see Stephen Getonga there saying, hi, John, kindly review AUD, USD. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. Can see that the market is coming back in. Let's wait and see if we can get, hopefully the market slowing down within this region right here. Then we could try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities. But at least it's coming back in within a good region for us to look for the buying opportunities. So I hope that is that sorts you out, Steven. So I guess that's pretty much it. Not really seeing any more questions or anything of the sort. So I guess we can end up starting to get ready to jump in on the chat. So I want to thank guys so much for making the time once again to be here with us. Remember the Amplified, we only have one slot left for the July. So if you want to sign up for that, also make sure that you do end up signing up. There should be a link in the chat box, but also if you don't go to our website, you definitely can end up finding that information. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. in the morning. If you do get any trades, whether good or bad, feel free to send them in to us. Our contact details are there on the chat box. We'll be more than happy to see what you guys are definitely up to. So happy trading, guys, and bye for now. May the peace be with you. God bless.